morning, Sister Barbara
Good
Hehr.
morning.
Yes. I'm so happy that you are here on campus because it's just been a short while, correct?
You're right. A few
But
months.
I do remember meeting you. I believe it was at the chapter of 68.
Oh, probably, if you can remember that far back, you're
Yes.
good.
Yes. How did that happen that you were present here?
Well, it was a shock to me and to everyone, I suppose. I was at that time working in teaching and principal in Douglas, Arizona, and I was finishing my typing my thesis to graduate from the University of San Francisco in the history department, and they sent a letter, would we help? And I wrote them back and said yes, I would be happy to help, but after I finished my thesis.
And help for the chapter?
To type for the chapter.
And who was asking this?
I'm not sure. Whoever the persons were that organized the chapter at that time. And I didn't really pay attention because it didn't interest me. And so chapter opened, and I didn't even realize probably that it was opening that day. And Sister Ann O'Connor called me, and she said, why are you there? And I go, what? And she said, well, they named you as chapter secretary, and they wanted to know where you were. And I go, no, they have the wrong, I don't do those things. And she said, well, you better come in here. So I came in, I was able to get a flight. It was Sunday, and my sister and brother-in-law drove me to Adrian, and I went in to see Mother Genevieve, and I said, Mother, you have the wrong Fredrick Ann. We must have another. I know we have an Aunt Fredrick, but we must have a Fredrick Ann in the community, because I don't do that. And she said, well, according to your records, you do. I said, yes, but that was because Siena Heights was closing that department. So anyway, she said, well, you can do it. Just talk to Florence Gibbons or Francine at the time. So Francine stayed up all night, of course, teaching me, reviewing shorthand and typing I did know and all that things. And that's how it lasted for the next 40 years, how many chapters, at that time, because it was different years at that one.
Did you have a round robin in the 68 chapter? Did you use the phone to tell people what was going on? Or?
Someone did, in our committee we did. Mm-hmm. At that time, remember, there were a large number of delegates, and at that time it was ditto machines, and it was mimeograph machines. And we used Robert's rules a lot. And so, if you handed out the minutes and there was a comma, that meant you had to retype everything all the time, And we had a wonderful group of young nuns that they scoured the place to get us equipment. And in fact, the ditto machine was in Siena Heights. So in the middle of the night, we'd have to run over there. And ditto only makes, 40 copies? Well, you know how that goes. And the minutes were forever and a day, saying, the former speaker, the previous speaker, that. We just really did those things.
Robert's rules of order.
Of order. You didn't ever use anyone's name.
Yeah.
You just had to say previous speaker.
But you became an eyewitness to the changes through the years. That must have been a wonderful position to be in.
It was. I used to laugh and say to myself, well, you're going to know everything firsthand. Nobody can get it before you. It was absolutely marvelous, and I loved every minute of it. And as the years went on, or the chapters went on, the work was less and less because, of course, with all the computers and all of those kinds of things, it was fabulous. And I can't say that I ever didn't like every moment of it.
Were you able to tune into the chapter this year? Because
yes, absolutely.
So much technology. I mean, it was hard to believe.
And I said to Sister Lorraine, I would never be able to, I can hardly type on a computer and find out what's going on, much less doing those kinds of things. You have to be professional, I'm amazed at what our students do, PowerPoints and those kinds of things. And And when we first got computers, I used to say to the children, in 1 minute, this is going right out the window. And they'd say, oh, sister, we'll help you, you know. But I still don't know very much about it.
Majority of your professional life was dedicated to education.
Oh, my whole life
life.
was dedicated. Even when I was small, it was just something that I wanted to do. And my mother used to say that I would make the kids, make my brothers and sisters, you know, or not my sisters, they're much older than I am, but we just had a good time. And I had a brother that was, at those times, we didn't call them challenged, we called them slow learners. And I used to make little cards and hang them up all over so that we could help him learn the words and learn the spelling and all of those kinds of things. Yeah.
How many brothers and sisters did you
I have 7 brothers, fabulous brothers, and 2 sisters. And it is a family that it is hard to describe because it's the most cherished thing in my life. It was faith-filled, many days, daily communion. It was just something that my mother, we said the rosary all the time. And my mother had a statue of the infant Jesus that she faced outside the door when we were all out, and then the last one in put it in so that the infant Jesus would protect us while we were out. We asked for blessings. It is a German tradition.
Yeah.
It was just, that was part of our life, a major part of our life, I should say. We never went to bed without or ate a meal unless we said our prayers.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Father Peyton, the family that prays together stays together.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that is so very true. You know, my one brother still today, he wouldn't think ever, or my niece ever, to miss Mass at any time. They just, in fact, sometimes we call my brother the deacon, you know. He just, for his birthday, I gave him that Living with Christ. And a couple of times when he does set everything up for Father. And Father came in one day, he said, oh, Ed, I don't know where the book is, the missal. He goes, Father, don't worry. I have this Living with Christ, and it has everything. So he said he could hardly wait to tell me that he was able to help the priest say whatever you call it.
You must have had a remarkable mother with 10 children.
Well, my mother was, I never saw my mother sit. I never saw my mother rest. I never, she was a tailor. She was a phenomenal cook and baker. Everything we had, I often say that, you know, when we came home from school, we didn't have the money to have a little bit of a treat at the drugstore, but when we came home, we knew what we were going to have. We were going to have cream puffs or chocolate eclairs or something. And then at night before we went to bed, we sat as a group, sat as a family, and listened to Lux Video Theater. And we always had a treat. My mother would have on each one of our chairs a treat before we went to bed. And it was just us, you know, because she was a disciplinarian. And her discipline was, if you were 5 minutes late, you would walk up the stairs at the front steps of the house and say, oh, please, Mom, don't say, and I am sorry, too. You walk in the door and say, Mom, I'm sorry. And if she said, and I'm sorry, too, that meant 2 weeks you didn't move.
Oh, my.
And you never asked, you never questioned, you never did anything. And that was always the discipline. And it was never excused, ever, ever, ever.
Your father
My father
worked away
worked
from home. Correct?
Yes, my father. Well, when we lived in Chicago, my father was home every night for supper. And after, when we were, I think it was like 1944 or something like that, my mother decided that we needed, and the war was almost over, and that we should move and so out of the city and get into a country air. And so we moved to Mundelein, Illinois, which is 40 miles north of Chicago. And it was strange because it had just 3 or 4 stores, you know, it had nothing. But we were able to continue Catholic school. My older brothers and sisters went to Catholic high school as well. And but we all went to Catholic grade school. and but there was no high school there that we could go to. Now there is, which my nephews have all been to, but it was. I loved my high school years. I wanted to enter a religious community before that, and my father said, you know, when you graduate, give me your diploma, then you may enter religious life. You're not going at 15 or 13 or whatever you are when you graduate from 8th grade. So,
when did the idea of becoming a nun
well,
enter into
when
your
I used
conscience?
to see the nuns, we only lived one door away from school,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to see them always with the kids and always helping the children, and I just loved it. And I could think because that's where our family was, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought that was the way to go, you know, and even though I went to public high school and I did all those things and did all those things, that in the public high school, my class knew that I was going to be a sister when I left.
Oh my!
And but I played sport, and I'm so glad for my dad for saying you have to do this, because it was a great 4 years in my life.
Mm-hmm. And you love sports too, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yes, I went to Dominican High.
Mm-hmm.
When I entered, I thought that's what I could be able to do as part of teaching.
Yes.
You know.
But before we get to your life at Dominican High as a nun, how did you even find the Adrian Dominicans? Because I haven't heard that name
Well,
yet.
no. I went to the BVMs for 6 years, and then I went to the Mercy Sisters for 2, and there was no way that I wanted to be a Mercy Sister. I wanted to be a BVM. Now, Ann Beauvais, who was one of our sisters as well, lived right down the street from me, and she was going to go to the Mercies, and because she had gone there for 8 years. And then our sisters opened Santa Maria del Popolo in 1950. It was Sister John Bernard and 3 other sisters. And Ann Beauvais lived directly across the street. So I was in high school, and I just did all the high school things, and she went over and visited the nuns. So in 50, Christmas, we sang Midnight Mass. Her mother was the musician at the church. And she said, come on over and see what I got for Christmas. And Ann and I were very close friends, but we didn't have that much in common because she didn't do sports. Mm-hmm. And but anyway, I went across the street with her, and she opened her trunk, and I looked at it. I go, what is that? And I said, that's not Mercy Sister. She said, no, I decided I'd be an Adrian Dominican. I said, well, so can I. We could go together. So I went home and told my mother, and she goes, because I'd already sent in all my stuff, and she said, are you sure? I said, oh, Ma, we want to go together anyway. You know, so what difference? A sister is a sister, you know. So I always say Ann Beauvais is my sponsor because...
Well, that should go in the archives, too. You're the same crowd.
Same crowd, yeah. And we just entered together, and we have always remained very close friends.
Well, that's historical.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Without me.
Yeah, and then, you know, we were tested the first day because we went to enter, and in those days, as I look back, I can remember that was a big celebration day for for Jubilees. And, of course, Adrian was very crowded and all this kind of stuff. And we get there, and one of the sisters said, oh, right now it's celebrating Jubilee Day, and the sisters, the young women who are going to enter into the community, need to come at 4 or later. So, you know,
what were you supposed to do?
17 years old, you know better than anybody. And so I said to Ann, this is it. They don't want me now. They don't want me at all. And so Ann was sick, and she didn't feel well. She got car sick. And so she said, if we could just spend one night. So I said, all right, one night, and that's all. And so my parents got a room, and they stayed, and the next morning I went into chapel, and Ann wasn't there. And now Sister Rita Marie's, I'm crying, and Sister Rita Marie comes, and what's the matter, dearie? I go, she left me. But she didn't hear the bell ring. And so we are, I think it's 65 years.
65 years.
Uh-huh.
And 60 of those you have spent out
In the
west.
West, yeah.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. Have your family, the brothers and sisters, gotten to know the West through you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Well,
Yes.
And they, they used to come out all the time, and we'd go on to little vacations and do all kinds of things.
So
Absolutely.
you so far mentioned Douglas, Arizona. What about California?
I was in 2 places in California. My first mission in California was St. Brendan's in San Francisco, and then that's when I started my master's degree at the university. And then sometime in there, I went to Oceanside just for a year. And then the majority of my years, although I was principal in L.A. too, I forgot about that. Most of my time was spent in Las Vegas, Nevada. Well, I don't know, 20-some, 30,
20,
I don't know,
20.
lots of years.
I know when people would hear the name Barb Hehr, they would think Las Vegas.
Isn't that the
Yes,
truth?
but
Yes.
And didn't we have a school, Our Lady of Las Vegas?
Oh, absolutely. Barbara Stanek was principal at the time. Well, I was principal at St. Joe's, and she was principal. And they say, "Is this Barbara Stanek, or is this
Yes.
Get us?"
Yeah.
It was a totally different place to live. We lived in a very poor community. It was the first Catholic school, and it was definitely falling apart. And it's sad to say it's closed today. Yeah, just closed it. I think a year or 2 ago.
Oh, my.
It's really sad.
Are there any other Catholic schools?
Oh
over
yes,
there?
there's still Our Ladies, still St. Francis, still, and then I think there's Mother Seton now. There's a number of Catholic schools, like St. Christopher's,
When
Viators. I forgot that.
Yes. Well, when you were taking care of, is that the proper term?
I think so.
Of Wayne Newton's daughter, you also taught. Where?
Yes.
Where was that?
He lived in the parish. Well, Erin was going to school there anyway. She was going into 3rd grade when I moved in and helped him. But St. Viator's was on the east. I don't know, closer to the Strip, I suppose. That's what I don't know how you can explain it. And at that time, it was when it first started. It was more for the well-to-do area people. But since then, it's just everything is leveled out. But I taught there probably, well, at least 15, I think, 15 years. All the time Erin was in school, both high school as well as college. And then she even moved out, and I stayed on, but I still taught school. I don't think in the number of years I taught, I don't know, probably 55, I never had a year that I didn't teach.
You never had a sabbatical.
No. I
Life was a sabbatical.
yeah, that's right. Being with
'cause
the
you
kids,
loved what you loved.
yeah, I miss them so much. It really is hard on me. But because in the summertime, if I went to Oregon or something, there were children there, and I taught in the summertime, and it just seemed as if. And then I taught catechism in the summer, and it just seems as if that's all
It's in
I
your
ever
blood.
wanted to do. But is to be with the kids. Yeah.
You were also at Grand Junction, Colorado, weren't you?
Yes,
I
we
love
were-
that name.
I went there. I had just. It's when I just left St. Viator's, and Barbara Stanek called and said, they need a mentor there or an advisor. Would you go and help? So I said, oh, sure, that'd be great. So I went there, and it was a beautiful school, and it was 2 campuses, and they had just hired a woman who was well qualified as far as education is concerned, but had never been in a classroom, but been a room mother. And so I worked with her for 5 years, and then the school built a brand new school where everyone was together. And so they hired a new principal then to take her on into the new. So we were there, Sister Lorraine and Sister Grace and I, for another not maybe not Sister Grace the whole time, but Sister Lorraine 5 more years. So I was there 10 years.
Yeah, it was beautiful country too.
Oh
wasn't
yes,
it?
yeah, and the people are just. I mean, it's so appreciative. Well, oh, they always are. I can't. It's how you work with them that make people want to be. I know that you can help and listen, and they help you, and you help them, and it was a family affair.
Wasn't your father that way when he would come home after being a week away?
My father was on Saturdays when we'd see my dad, and my dad was not like the rest. We are all outspoken. In fact, when we talked too much, my mother would say, "Sit on your hands." Then our mouths shut, of course. And when you have my sister and I and my brother, I mean, we never keep still. And the nuns look at me here because they don't quite understand me, but that's okay. My father would sit with us on Saturday morning, and each one individually, and he'd say, "Well, what'd you do this week? And this and this and this and this." And you tell him, and deep in your heart, he already knew because my mother told him everything. And but he'd like to hear it from you,
Oh, how
and
tender.
and it was funny when we lived in Chicago at 4:00 every day we'd come over and sneak over. My mother was on the phone with my dad, and we'd want to see if we could hear anything different that we didn't know. And here's what she said: "Yes, oh, no, I wouldn't do it. No, yes, yes." Never said, "Bye, see you at night." And we'd say, "Oh, Ma, don't you ever say?" She said, "No, because you're right behind me." So, I mean, they were just loving parents, loving each other, and we saw that, and it just we all turned out I think like my mother wanted us to. My mom and my dad. I shouldn't just say my mom, but
Were you near her when she passed away?
yeah, I was in. Oh, this it was fabulous. I was at the University of San Francisco when I came. They sent for me, and but by the time Madonna drove me there, my mother had passed away. But the most beautiful thing happened, and my mother deserved this. Our junior professor sisters were at Bishop O'Dowd in Oakland. And Nadine Foley was there, working with them, and unbeknownst to, I think, any of us, or I certainly didn't know, they sang My Mother's Mass. And Nadine sang a solo.
Oh my, how beautiful!
It was just something else.
The synchronicity
yes.
of that. Yes.
And it was funny because when when my mother first died, and we went to the wake, the nuns came in droves, and my blind brother said, "Oh, don't tell me we have to say another rosary. Don't tell me we have to say another rosary." So then one morning my brother said, where my mother was staying, my brother said, "Barb, would you do me a favor, get these people out of this house?" He said, "They are driving me crazy. They're so crazy." So he sent us to this farm restaurant. We went to the farm restaurant, and now my brothers, I hate to tell you what my brothers had for breakfast: a pound of bacon, a dozen eggs, that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we go to the restaurant, now that's what they're ordering. Now they come to pay the bill and they won't pay it because of me. They want to embarrass me. So, I mean, they played all those tricks all the time. And finally my brother-in-law picked up the bill. Or we'd go across the bridge and you have to pay.
And they had no money.
It was terrible. It was just. Then finally, someone would do it. But those days you didn't have any. We got a dime to go to college. Mm-hmm. Which was for coffee with our lunch, which was perfect because you didn't. If you wore the habit, you didn't have to pay on the bus.
And a quarter to do your 50 cents to do your washing.
Yeah.
And dry the clothes. Let's go back to Dominican High now.
Okay.
How did you happen to
I was
as a teacher?
I was what was I then? I was principal in L.A. at St. Raphael's with Lorraine again, and someone I don't know called and said, would I be able to go to Dominican High and work in the athletic department? They had, I think they said they had fired their volleyball coach, and Oh, I was excited because it was sports. And so I went, and little did I know that other things went with it. And like Dean of Students and 6 other things, I don't know what they were. But our sisters, I just said I can't do that. Our sisters came in droves and that helped me through every inch of that. And
It was Mary Ann Fallman there at the time.
Mary Ann and Peg O'Flynn and Pat McDonald, and they just have remained we have remained such close friends over that. But some of those years are blank, you know, and I don't know why, but maybe we're not so good. I don't know, but
well, it comes with age.
But you know, CJ. Mary Ann had to go someplace, and I was already gone, and my soccer team was going to play. So they called her and said...
Are you calling Carol Jean McDonald?
Yes. No, the young one.
Oh, Carol Jean Castergy?
Yes. And you know, she dressed, you know how she dresses. She dresses like she walked out of a bandbox. And she said, do what? And she said, when she came back, she said she had high heels on like this, and it was pouring rain, and she was sinking and she had an umbrella. I said, can you imagine this woman? So finally, the coach came over and said, it's lightning out. Do you think you want to call the game? And she goes, yes. And she always says, you owe me big time, Barb, for me having to do
big time. Having spent 60 years out west and done quite a bit of traveling, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
Yes. If someone asks you, where should I go before I'm too old to travel, where's a place of beauty that I should never miss?
Well, I would say Yosemite National Park. You know, when we were at St. Brendan's, I want to say 58, 70, whatever it was, over Easter vacation, we all went to Yosemite. I mean, the nuns down in Santa Cruz, and we had these little cabins and all this. And every year, it was just the most, in full habit, you know, it was just the most, just absolutely magnificent. I've been to a lot of the national parks, but Yosemite, to me, was just unreal.
Well, Barb, I want to thank you for your presence here, and it seems to me as if you have just slid into the, you know, what should I say, the institutional life. You seem very happy. Am I reading you wrong?
Oh, no, you're not. I am so happy. You can't. I was, you know, I'm sure at an age in everyone's life, I was getting very lonesome for the sisters. And what really hit it a nail on the head was making retreat at Easter week and seeing the nuns and being able to stay longer and visit all the nuns at the DLC and witness liturgy and witness prayer. Lorraine and I, there wasn't a day we didn't say our prayers, but in the masses are masses, you know. And most of them out west, if you're lucky, I mean, I'm not saying anything against them, but it's very difficult to understand some of the priests. And so when we came, I said, Lorraine, I this is it. I can't get away from this. And so being here is God's gift to me to realize that this, and I've always said this is my home, to bring me here sooner than what I had anticipated, because I wouldn't leave for a second. I just love being with the sisters. It just is absolutely unreal.
And you have a room with a view.
Yes, we watch the sunrise. Whether it rises or not, we have our coffee in the morning, and then we have never pulled our shades, and just look out. It is just
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Well, may the rest of your days be filled with sun and joy and love.
Thanks.
And thank you for your presence.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank
for
you for
today.
asking.